As you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
We turn now to Donald Trump's impending return to the White House. The president-elect naming new members to his second administration overnight.
Overnight, President-elect Donald Trump announcing a key role in his new administration, writing that Tom Homan will oversee the nation's borders and will also, quote, be in charge of all deportation of illegal aliens back to their country of origin.
I do want to say something, though, about Tom Homan.
Mm-hmm.
So for everyone who said Trump doesn't know what Project 2025 is, he just put a key contributor in charge of this. And Tom Homan was interviewed on 60 Minutes, and he was asked, is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families? And he said, of course there is. Families can be deported together. And you can say Donald Trump has a mandate till you're blue in the face. Taking grandma is not what people were voting for. They were voting for criminals to be kicked out of this country. If you think that it's a good thing for that kind of position taking within the Republican Party, you're just wrong.
Trump's the commander-in-chief. You could put Daffy Duck in there.
All right, guys.
Okay, hold on a wee sec. So you're telling me that when Trump said he has nothing to do with Project 2025, that he's never read it, but he likes some things that he never read?
Haven't read it. I don't want to read it. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad.
He was telling porky pies? Surely not. I mean, are we talking about the same guy that recorded 30,573 lies last crack at the whip, hell-bent on doubling it this time? Color me shocked.
This is, a lot of people thought that when he talked about mass deportations, he wasn't being serious. I don't know how many times he had to say it for people to realize he was being serious. Well, if you thought he wasn't being serious, the appointment of Tom Homan today as border czar, and he will be in charge of a mass deportation program, the largest the country has ever seen, they say. And now Stephen Miller, as deputy chief of staff, should let you know that he was absolutely serious.
As the dust settles after last week's election, Trump has wasted absolutely no time selecting his yes men, sending a clear message to anyone hoping to work with his second White House. Dissenters need not apply, naming Representative Elise Stefanik as his next UN ambassador, former Representative Lee Zeldin to lead the Environmental Protection Agency, and Mike Waltz to be National Security Advisor. Followed then by today's pick, the man he once called Little Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. You know, the same Marco Rubio who said this in the past about his now boss.
First he had this little makeup thing applying like makeup around his mustache because he had one of those sweat mustaches. Then he asked for a full-length mirror. I don't know why, because the podium goes up to here, but he wanted a full-length mirror. Maybe to make sure his pants weren't wet. I don't know. Then I see him pacing back and forth, and then he's huddled in the corner talking to somebody. He's like waving his arms up and down, and the person's trying to calm him down. So, anyway, but I'm a chalker. All right. Next tweet. Leet weight chalker Marco Rubio looks like a little boy on stage, not presidential material. He meant to say lightweight, but he spelled it Leight, so he got that wrong. Looks like a little boy on stage. It's not that I look like a little boy. I wouldn't even be the youngest president, but he would be the oldest president ever elected, and it's like an 8-year term, so you start to worry.
And with all this, it further reiterates what better minds than mine have been warning against, specifically John Oliver. The incoming president will both prioritize loyalty in his second administration and seek to leverage it to carry out his most ambitious and controversial plans. One pick in particular seems to contradict the president-elect's claims that he knows nothing about Project 2025.
Like some on the right, severe right, came up with this Project 25, and I don't even know. I mean, some of them I know who they are, but they're very, very conservative. But I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. But what they do is misinformation and disinformation.
He tapped Tom Homan, a polarizing immigration hardliner and former author of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 manifesto, as border Caesar, which many have pointed out he did this as opposed to a cabinet position that would require Senate confirmation to ensure the Project 2025 is on the agenda.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
And all this was brought up on Fox News The 5 as Jessica Tarlov, whose job was already hard enough, let alone having to stomach Jesse Waters' post-Trump victory, she called it to attention on air, leaving her MAGA co-hosts speechless, as they often are when pressed with facts.
I do want to say something, though, about Tom Homan.
Mm-hmm.
So for everyone who said Trump doesn't know what Project 2025 is, he just put a key contributor in charge of this. And Tom Homan was interviewed on 60 Minutes, and he was asked, is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families? And he said, of course there is. Families can be deported together. He also said that it didn't mean if someone was coming to be, quote unquote, rounded up and grandma was in the house and she's undocumented, that it didn't necessarily mean that grandma wouldn't be taken to. And you can say Donald Trump has a mandate till you're blue in the face. Taking grandma is not what people were voting for. They were voting for criminals to be kicked out of this country.
This is not the first time that Trump has worked with Homan, which made his comments in the past all the more laughable. I mean, he appointed the man as acting Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director shortly after taking office in 2017. And picking him again sends a pretty strong signal. Despite his campaign trail disavowals, Trump is willing to welcome those aligned with Project 2025 into this administration. Which Tarlov pointed out, right, despite Trump claiming a mandate to implement sweeping legal and regulatory changes after broadening the GOP voter base by making inroads in communities of color and other former Democratic strongholds, first wave of appointments and rejections subsequently showed that he has little interest in modeling his government on that expanded tent, but instead seeking loyalty. That's it.
I do want to start tonight with a bit of a look at the people Trump is choosing to serve in his administration right now. So today, Trump tapped Tom Homan, his former acting ICE director, as his border czar. And Trump is expected to name immigration hardliner Stephen Miller. You know that guy. His get out the vote message last week was vote to end the invasion. That was his get out the vote message. That guy is going to take over the role of deputy chief of staff for policy. Now, those are two people who clearly have made very abundantly clear they have every intention of taking the most aggressive, most inhumane approach to immigration policy possible. And while you've probably heard a lot over the years about Stephen Miller, I bet, you probably haven't heard as much about Tom Homan. So I just want to give you a little insight into who that guy is. I mean, this is a guy who backed Trump's zero-tolerance immigration policy during his first term, which of course resulted in thousands of families being separated at the southern border. He was a contributor to Project 2025's mandate for leadership. Yeah, you know, that 900-page bigoted blueprint to overhaul the federal government. That was all online. He said just a few months ago that migrants, quote, ain't seen shit yet. Wait until 2025. That's his quote, not mine. And Tom Homan, the guy you just saw there, and Stephen Miller are just two in the growing cast of pretty scary characters Trump is adding to his inner circle. Just moments ago, we learned Trump selected Congressman Mike Waltz to be his national security advisor, not a Senate-confirmed job. Waltz is a Trump loyalist, an election denier, and a NATO critic who echoes Trump's skepticism about supporting Ukraine. Oh, and the guy rumored to be in the running for CIA or FBI director is Kash Patel. Now, The Atlantic wrote recently about him, quote, that even in an administration full of loyalists, Patel was exceptional in his devotion. It's quite a mantle. Now, each of these choices really tells us something about Trump's vision of a second term because of what they all have in common. They're all pure loyalists, of course. They're MAGA devotees. They're people who will carry out Trump's wildest wishes without a second thought. But beyond that, these are people who share Trump's king-like view that executive power should be limitless. I mean, do you remember the kinds of things Stephen Miller had to say at the beginning of Trump's first term? We do.
Wanting those who will simply nod their head and go along with his plan, which, as this Trump voter came to realize in real time, when told about said plan, it might not be what they signed up for because it is in fact not always fair.
If they let in hundreds or thousands of people who already have criminal records, if deporting them creates a mass deportation, I'm all for it.
But what if rounded up in all of that are people who work on a farm? They're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do. Does that worry you?
That wouldn't be fair. Of course, you know, they need to make sure that they don't throw away, they don't kick out, they don't deport people that are family oriented.
Criminals and gang members get no grace period. But while we're out prioritizing the public safety threats and national security threats, if you want to self-deport, you should self-deport because, again, we know who you are and we're going to come and find you. So if you want to self-deport, that's fine. But criminals and gang members, they get no favors from this administration. You came to this country illegally, which is a crime. You committed crimes against the United States citizens, some heinous crimes. You get no grace period, so we're coming for you. But for those others, the non-criminals, if you want to self-deport, I'm all for it. Because when they self-report, they can put their orders, put everything in order, their family business, if they got homes or whatever, they can put all that in order and leave with their family altogether. It makes perfect sense for the ones that are not criminals and not priorities.
How are they going to get home? How do they get home?
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.